How do you solve the donorism problem? In the sense that there are a lot of ideas out there, and you guys laid out a lot of them, and would that all politicians got behind them, but they aren't because there isn't really a market for it, because they don't get donations from rich people when they talk about poverty. They don't get voters because oftentimes the middle class make up a lot of the voters instead of the poor. How do you address that problem? Why, maybe there's an Arthur Brooks pact or something.
Well, in my issue, it's very simple. We spend so much money on prisons, and people see that they're getting, more and more taken out of their paycheck, and they're like, "We're paying for what? Why are we putting these people in cages for this amount of time? How much is it costing again? Are you kidding?" And then, you let them out, and they just reoffend, and you throw them back in. How is this, people like, you're not spending my tax money efficiently. But in a broader sense, you also have, you start to see people like Right on Crime that have been able to develop donor bases and saying, hey, these are ways that we can, our laws have gotten a little out of hand. I mean, I didn't talk about it, but there's like a problem with overcriminalization that is actually locking up and taking money away from the middle class and the rich. And people are starting to say, hey, maybe I need to start thinking this criminal justice system in general, and you do see donations on that end, as far as how do we get people to donate to this, to the people who are, let's be right, has demonized for years. That's a very interesting question.
If you know of anyone, we at Art Street would be interested in talking to them.
Federal Society is also
If anyone else has any.
I mean, I think the donorism problem is really interesting, and Eamon I think is treating with this question because we were talking about this over lunch today too. But I mean, it's a very serious question that a lot of organizations and institutions in DC are not willing to discuss, and that's in large part because a certain set of brothers tends to fund a significant portion of several organizations. And I think that really does stifle, and it's not just the Koch brothers and the Koch Foundation, but there really is a limited number of large donors that limits the intellectual creativity of the conservative movement. I think that's changing, and I think that's a good thing that that's changing, but we need to constantly be challenging our assumptions on things and not just be satisfied with fighting the battles that we should have been fighting 10, 15 years ago, but to be willing to take risks and experiment with folks who are trying innovative policies. I think R Street, and this isn't just a plug for Lori's organization, but I think R Street is a good example of this. I will be first in line to question sometimes whether or not R Street is a little squishy on things. But I would much rather experiment with R Street and their very innovative policy approaches to very significant issues and see where that goes than to kind of fall into the traditional donor traps of not funding candidates or institutions that are willing to think outside the box.